Hi guys, I got request for more planets tutorial, and so here's a pretty big one to have a Earth-like planet where I will use basically all the layers. I will use the basic relief, details 2, the water, I will play with the weather, the ice cap, desert, the clouds, and also the cities. So I hope that you will enjoy this one. I will just do that without any real preparation, so probably sometimes I will have some stuff that will not work really well. I will probably have to go back and forth. So you get the idea. I will just do the creation while shooting the tutorial. So I will first choose my relief, my basic relief. So for planet like Earth, I'd like to have some big continents, so it's probably better to go for hyperfractal or multifractal. It's probably one of the two best choices. Maybe I will try with let's say hyperfractal parent tree. First, when I'm just making my first step to have a better idea of what's going on, I often increase the amplitude just to have a better idea of the masses I'm working with. And after I will reduce that, because for a Earth-like planet it's quite flat and there's nearly no displacement. So first, there are too many high frequencies, so I have to reduce the scale. Okay, like this. I can start with something like this for the seed, and I will start directly with the water, so I will have a better idea where are the different continents, islands, and stuff like that. So I just check the water, increase a bit the 8, and I will bake in 8, so I will have a flat water. If I don't bake in 8, I will have the water that will be, well, the places will be tagged as water, but it will not be flat. You're supposed, when you're not baking it to the 8, to render another layer of translucency material with the water. So just avoiding that, and you can already see the different masses. Probably I have to increase the water level like this. Okay, lots of small island. Probably have to make some tuning on the noise. So I'll go back to relief. So if I increase the roughness, I can have more interesting coastline, but the problem is that it will just add lots of noise everywhere. So for the coastline, I will use a secondary layer of noise that will be more focused on a certain 8 from the basic relief, so I can just add at some place the interesting coastline, and so I need to have something more neutral on the basic relief layer. So we'll have something like this. I will also play a bit with this curve here. There's still a lot of connection with this noise, so maybe I will try with another one, or maybe trying the new exponential ones. But the exponential ones have completely different range of values, so I probably have to reduce. Well, I will remove the water to have. Okay. So the water level should be okay. this. So I have lots of small islands. We'll reduce still the scale. Okay, it's better. Maybe I change a bit the seed to have something more interesting. Too many connections between the continents here, so we'll try something else. Here I have bigger masses, and maybe I can just do something like that for the 8. And I will maybe just increase a bit the water 8 to have a bit less island, because I think there are a lot of them. So okay, it's better. So I can already reduce the amplitude here. I can just keep it quite low just to have a little relief over here, like this. Yeah, it's quite subtle, but I think it will do it. I'm also checking the axis to avoid having a continent right in the poles. Okay, it's great. And okay, so for the first layer of noise, I can also play with the shelf to have bigger beaches over here. So I will increase flattening intensity. So here it's where is my flattening. So it's like here. It's supposed to match more or less the water level. You see, you can see now that this part is flattened but underwater, so probably have to increase a bit here. Okay, so it's better. We have very large beach here, so I will reduce a bit the flattening intensity. And what I can do also is modify the randomization. So if I don't put any randomization, I will have very large beaches everywhere. If I increase the randomization, some places will be more sharp and other places will be flatter. We're just trying to avoid those weird shape stuff coming from the noise of the randomization here. Maybe I can change the scale with lower scale, and change a bit the balance between the two. Okay. Well, I think I got some interesting stuff. Maybe I will change again the scale to have something a bit bigger. Okay. So by reducing the scale of the noise, you increase the masses of the continents. Okay, so it's better. For the color, so it's the basic color layer. I'll probably come back after on these colors. I have some presets here, like this one, and I can also change the range of color, because probably there's a lot of range in the 8 that is not used, so that range of color, more reddish, is not used also. So if I increase this, okay, so it's better, but I have to adjust, of course, the water, because by doing this I'm just basically increasing the range, the available range. Okay, so it's I've made it too far. Okay, to cover all the possible values between the lowest and the highest values. So go back to water, increase water level to 1.5 more or less. So I have to also increase the shelf level. Okay, so basically this is the color that will be used for the beaches, and this for the highest mountains. I can change that after. Maybe this can be a bit more brown. Okay, and I can shift a bit the color to have something more interesting. The red is probably too red here. I need to add some color. Okay, this will be changed anyway with the sediment and the vegetation layer. Okay, so I already got something interesting. So the first detail layer will be used to add creases and cracks in the coastline. So I will use the crack mode, and I will use the hyperfractal, and probably, which one did I use here? The 3, so I will use the 2 here, and I will try to have the cracks okay, so I just trying to find the sweet spot for the cracks. Okay, so this is more or less what I want, but it's too high frequencies here, so I still have to reduce the scale to have bigger cracks like this. As I'm reducing the scale of the cracks, they are less chaotic, so I can increase the roughness to have more details, like you see here. The roughness can increase that. If you don't push it too hard, because you will have just something that is less interesting, but in between it's okay. So I will try to have something nice that cover lots of places on the planet. Okay, like it's interesting, and by default it's applying those cracks everywhere. So I can change well the intensity, but I can also change the cut range. The cut range is where the cracks will be applied. So this is the lowest limit, so under that limit you won't have any cracks, and above this limit you won't have any cracks. And the cut softness is basically the transition I got between the no cracks and cracks zone. So I will reduce the cut softness to have a better idea of the limits I'm having. So see, you can see the cracks in the water here. So here cracks are everywhere. If I increase this limit, okay, it's reduced to something pretty close to the coast level over here. So it's 0.1. The coast level is 0.15, so it's matching. And I will reduce here to avoid having cracks in the highest region of my planet. And to avoid the sharp transition, I will increase the softness like this. Okay. I probably can increase the upper limit now. Okay. And with the intensity, I can just add more or less matter, let's say. Here I'm removing matter with the cracks. If I want to add matter, I can go to the peaks here. You see, it looks like veins, but on a planet level. So here are the cracks. Okay. So what I can do with the latest version of Grand Designer is transforming these cracks into water. Here I can't see water because I'm digging deep enough to reach the water level. But if I'm reducing the intensity, I have the cracks, but I don't have any water. So what I can do is I can color the cracks. So here, if I want to make water, I will color this in, so I will do saturation and change the hue to have something like this. Okay. Here it will be dark blue, and this will be like this. And I will color it. Probably have to flip the ramp. Yes, flipping the ramp is better in this case. And I will add this to the water by going to the water tab and doing the injection detail. So you see, you get the water roughness. So it's just like adding rivers or lakes when it's bigger, like this. So I can increase the range of injection, and I can tune that also into the details by changing the color spreading. I can change the places of this river by changing the seed of my details here. See, if I change the seed, it will appear somewhere else, but on the highest places it will not be there because the cut range is already tuned, and you won't have anything underwater because the lowest, the minimum cut range is also set. So well, I will keep this one and we'll try to tune a bit the like this. Oh, not too much. And I can also increase the sharpness of the cut with this slider, you see. Like that. Okay, so it still can be adjusted after that. I mean, we'll just have everything in place, and then we will fine-tune that after. So this had also some interesting details near the coastline. And we still have another detail layer that we can use. So either we can use that to have more extreme coastline with very sharp shapes, for instance, or you can add other mountains. Well, there are different options here. I can first try maybe to add some coastline, sharp coastline stuff. So I will go to have something sharp and edgy. I will definitely use Voronoi, and I will just try to find the interesting range. Okay, here we are. So here I'm subtracting the Voronoi shape, and as you can see, it's really straight. Now I probably have to increase the roughness and change the ramp to have something more interesting for the cut. You see, you have lots of very sharp things like this. Okay, but of course I don't want that everywhere, so I will again play with the cut range. Like this, and you can clearly see that underwater, so I can also increase the minimum value like this. Okay, so maybe the multifractal is not the best one. Let's try the below. And change the range here. Looks like it's very rough. I mean, I got really a lot of details. I can change the scale like I've done before for larger patches of noise like I got here. And the range is not right because it's clearly above the coastline. Okay, now I have some interesting stuff happening over here. So I can check with and without that layer. Transition is too sharp, so probably have to smoothen a bit. And for the range over here, I will check. Okay, maybe less intensity for the cut. And okay, now we got something that it's more interesting now. You can play with the scale if you're not happy with what we have. And you can also, of course, always play with the seed to have stuff at other places. Okay, I think that we might raise a bit the water level. Or maybe it will be easier to keep the water level and change with the main relief parameters, like this. Okay, now I got something more interesting. So I can now have a look at the weather here. So I can check what is the moisture on the planet. Okay, so there's lots of moisture everywhere. So I can play a bit with the moisture from ocean, reduce a bit the spreading, and check. Okay, that's probably better like that. Okay, and the heat level is here. So this will basically define where will be the desert zone and where will be the ice caps. Okay. So what I can do also is maybe do a quick higher definition render to see if it's okay in higher resolution. I'll first check. Okay, I'm in 8K by 4K, so it's okay. Okay, now we got some interesting stuff, definitely. Okay, so I like that. I will save my planet with a new Earth 5. Pretty sure I've not used this one yet. And now I will check maybe for the ice caps. That can be a good idea. Okay. And to have nice ice spreading, I always try to have a slope influence pretty high. So basically it's just putting the ice where the land is flat. With the ice min and max, you can define the maximum level of ice and the minimum level of ice. So if I reduce the max, you will reduce the places where you have ice, and if you increase the min, you will have basically a bit of ice everywhere. So this is typically what you will use if you want to have a frozen planet. So you can play with the expansion here to have bigger or smaller ice caps, and you can also play with the sharpness to define if you have a very strong contrast or if you have something softer. Okay, I like it that way. And beside that, well, you can just play with the noise to define the random shape over here. So if I change the seed, I'm just changing the shape. But it's quite limited, the range I can have over here. Then you can change the color, and you can change also the ice roughness. So if I have my sun over here, you see that the ice cap is more shiny than the earth, and this is the ice roughness. So if I put a more rough value, it will be less shiny. We'll have something like this. Okay, great. Okay, so we will also see the desert part here. Okay, so the desert part basically will color in a different range of color the place where you have very hot temperature. So if you check the heat, you see where it's red. It's basically where you will have the desert. So it's also defined by a random. So you see you have the random limit over here. It's quite limited also, the effect of the randomization. You have the spreading of the desert, the sharpness. If you want to have something that is really, this is desert, and after you don't have anything like that. And beside that, you can play also with the, I will have something softer, with the random shape. So by default it's quite low, so it's not that random, but if you want to have something more random, then increase that value, and then changing the seed, you will see that the effect is more important now. Okay, no, it's more interesting. Okay, and you can also say if you want to have an influence of the slope or not. For the desert, it's less interesting than the ice. And you can also define the moisture influence, just to avoid having desert near the coastline. So if you increase the moisture influence, basically it will reduce the presence of desert near the coast. But you can increase the expansion, and you will have something more subtle on the coastline. I can keep it, let's say, in between, like this. Okay. So the color used in the desert area is the color I got in my relief mountains in desert here. So it's maybe too yellowish, so I will reduce a bit the saturation, and I will maybe increase a bit the red for this part. Like this. Okay, so you can really tune it the way you want. I will just save this one and we'll try some other, like the hot preset. Nice, but a bit too saturated. And well, the earth one is nearly the same here, so you barely see the desert. And if you have any doubt about the coloring, always use this RGB coloring. It's working quite well. So here I can just change the range to have, okay, so I see where are my green parts, so the mid color, the reddish part are over here, and the bluish are some over here. Okay, so I will go back to my the Earth 5 desert. Okay, so it's better. Once you've set the ice caps and the desert, you can always tune the place they are covering by changing the weather tab. So for instance, if I want to reduce a bit the possibility of having ice coming this low, I can change the temperature on the poles and the spreading. So if I reduce the spreading, the ice caps will be reduced. If I increase, you see I can have ice on top of mountains because I have high altitude temperature set to minus something, and this can be spread especially when you are in high altitude. And I can change also the influence of the ocean temperature and the spreading. So if I increase the spreading of the temperature of the ocean, I can basically melt all the ice that is in water. If I put a temperature very low, so that means that the ocean will be freezing more than the land, so it will spread that ice on the ocean first. Okay, so I will put back the default value, which is quite neutral. You have a bit of propagation of the ice on the water that you don't have on land, but it's okay. You can also change the shape and the spreading of the heat by changing the spread center. It's basically you're off-centering everything. So if you want to have half the planet frozen and the other half more hot, you can use the spread center on one direction or the other. And if you want to see what if your planet is coming closer to the sun or farther away, you can play with the CHZ offset. So here it's closer to the planet, so you see that this desert is going everywhere, and on the other direction I can basically have completely frozen planet. You can also tilt the equator axis and randomize everything more or less, and change the scale of the random and the seed. It's really up to you. So you can easily do modification of the weather of your planet with this slide. So got my ice caps, I got my desert, and I got my mainland for the moment.